Is it possible to keep an owl as a pet? As long as local law allows, the answer to the question is yes if you want to keep an owl as a pet. However, you must remember that the owl is a bird of prey and therefore a wild animal. This means she behaves differently than familiar pets and needs special care. The willingness to do this is a basic requirement. If you decide to get an owl anyway, we recommend raising them as young birds, so she grows up in a home and in a family. During this time, you can better acclimatize her to life as a pet and teach her what is required. Make sure your home has enough space or a yard for the owl to fly. Remember that you must mimic their natural habitat as much as possible. Ah, how nice it is every time we see Harry Potter and his owl Hedwig. After all, the owl becomes a faithful companion of the young magician over the years. So it's understandable if some people want an owl as a pet. Although this animal is a wild animal and should not be kept as a pet, if you decide to keep it, you have to consider a few things, because that's not so easy. Where and how to keep an owl? What does the animal eat anyway? If you want to get an owl, you should, as with any other pet, get detailed information beforehand so that you don't do anything wrong as a pet owner. After all, the animal should feel comfortable and get everything it needs. Other owl keepers may also make mistakes, which they may pass on to you as well-intentioned advice. In general, you should therefore always consult experts, animal keepers, veterinarians, if you want to keep an owl. What can I expect if I want to keep an owl at home? First of all, you should say goodbye to the idea that the animal can be kept like Harry Potter is. Owls can hardly be tamed, and they are not lovely cuddly toys that go along with everything. If you want to keep them, you need to know that. Properly educating an owl is also very time-consuming and requires special previous experience with the animals, which often only animal keepers and company have. Owls are nocturnal animals. So if you think you can spend a lot of time with the animal during the day, you're wrong. This only works in exceptional cases. The animals are mostly out and about at night and go hunting. What do owls eat anyway? Speaking of hunting, you can't keep an owl in a cage like a budgie. Owls need a lot of space and an aviary that is as large as possible, in which they can roam freely. They eat live animals, especially moles, small rabbits, rats, and especially mice. This can vary depending on the species of owl. The species most commonly kept as pets is the tawny owl. This eats animals that weigh up to 300 grams. This includes frogs, toads, beetle, worms, mice, rats, sometimes smaller owls too. The owls are mostly independent. These birds are called raptors, which live and hunt independently. Unlike other types of large birds such as macaws or cockatoos, owls do not live in wild flocks. They are extremely antisocial creatures when compared to other bird species. Social contacts among their own kind are only maintained with their companions and their offspring. This important aspect must be considered when keeping the owl as a pet. The herd mentality is what allows a parrot to successfully integrate into a human family. However, because owls lack this type of behavior, the pet owl views everyone but the one person they choose as their companion, as an enemy or even prey. They are therefore likely to attack other humans on sight. This can be a big problem if you ever get sick, travel, or are otherwise unable to look after your owl. And since they mate for life, if they are placed in someone else's care, they can fall into depression, sometimes severe, until death. Feeding owls. Feeding owls appropriately is another concern that makes it almost impossible to successfully care for owls as pets. Because owls are technically birds of prey, they have specific dietary needs that cannot be met by feeding them seeds, pellets, or fresh foods such as fruits and vegetables. In fact, if you presented one of these treats to an owl, he or she probably wouldn't even recognize it as food. Owls are carnivorous creatures and need to be fed whole rodents such as mice, small rabbits, guinea pigs, quail, and small chickens. These feeders are commercially produced by farms. This diet is the only way to meet the owl's complex nutritional needs. For preservation, transportation, and preparation, prey must first be frozen and then thawed before feeding. Few retailers also offer live feed animals for species-appropriate live feeding of the owl. As you can imagine, this can be a less than comfortable ordeal, let alone having to feed the owl multiple times a day. Like all birds, owls can be quite messy eaters. Therefore, tidying up and cleaning up after feeding will be another task that most people will find hard to endure. As carnivores, owls are equipped with a beak and claws specially designed for tearing and shredding pieces of meat. Therefore, they are also capable of causing great harm to people if they become dissatisfied for any reason. They are destructive and can easily tear up anything you have in their house. Are owls dangerous? This may seem like a strange question at first, but it's not entirely nonsensical. Because owls are not easy to keep as hunting animals, and thanks to their claws and pointed beak, it can happen that they unintentionally injure their owners. Are owls good eyesight? And how they can. Like cats that hunt in the night, owls must have good eyesight. A tawny owl has 56,000 receptors in its eyes, while a human only has 38,000. Hearing is also very easy for the feathered animals, and they can fly almost silently. What you need to know if you want to keep an owl as a pet. Inform yourself beforehand. Before you adopt an owl as a pet, you should learn as much as possible about them and their care. Talk to a vet you trust and ask at the nearest zoo. Any information you can collect is useful and important. Find the right place. Let's not beat around the bush here. If you live in an apartment, you can't keep an owl as a pet. The wild animal needs enough space to fly so that it can fully express its instincts. You also have to make sure that the owl cannot escape. Do you have enough free time? Although owls are very independent in their natural habitat, they are not in captivity. As soon as they have someone around, they demand attention. Even if you let them loose in your yard, they will yell at you to get your attention. This could well become a problem with the neighbors. So make sure you have enough time to spend with the animal, especially if you let it loose. On top of that, owls molt every year and can spend months shedding the old plumage. So you will have your hands full. What do owls eat? As already mentioned, owls are not pets, so you cannot feed them ready-made food. Rather, you must feed them the same foods they would eat in the wild, mice and small mammals. This means that you have to get this food for your owl, which is not easy and sometimes even a bit inconvenient. Of course, you can't keep an owl as a pet if you have hamsters, birds, cats or dogs, because they could just disappear thanks to your owl. What to look for if you want to keep an owl as a pet? The owl is not a predictable animal because, despite the many studies available to date, no clear pattern of behavior can be identified. By this we mean that you should always be vigilant, because with a pet owl you never know what might happen next. As you can see, having an owl as a pet might not be the best choice. especially when you consider taking a wild animal out of its habitat. But if you do decide to adopt an owl, don't forget to follow the tips above. Are you thinking about getting an owl? Let us know what you decide in the comments below. And if you know someone who's thinking about getting an owl, please share this with them. If you liked this video, check out our website. The link is in the description of this video. Otherwise, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.